Shake your rump.
Hi there, Carl Boltzmann here, and welcome back to my studio. In this video, I'm going to be deconstructing the Beastie Boys' Shake Your Rump from their classic 1989 album, Paul's Boutique. Now, there are a lot of samples to go over, but before we do that, let's take a quick listen to Shake Your Rump. Now, the drum fill that opens up Shake Your Rump comes from Alphonse, Mouzon, and their track Funky Snakefoot from 1974. Now, because a lot of sampling involves pitch shifting and oftentimes stretching things to make them slower or compressing things to make them faster and higher pitched, I would have sworn that this drum fill at the beginning of Shake Your Rump was compressed and pitch shifted up and made much faster. But it wasn't. That drum line right there, you can see how it is stretched a little bit, which means that we're just going to bring that pitch down a tiny bit so that our transients match theirs. Let's see if that pitch works. And now what we're going to do is we're going to repeat that first loop a couple of times here. Okay, so we have our 3 repeats here. And then let's add on the rest of the drum fill. Let's move on to the next sample. And so this sample comes from Harvey Scales and his track Dancing Room Only from the 1979 album Hot Foot, a funk disco opera.
Hey, you do it, girls.
Yes.
You know I've been in and out and in every disco in town, looking for this so-called fast-stepping Eddie. Does he exist? Or is he a myth? Huh?
Go down to the matchbox, where it's always crowded, and the music never stops. It's dancing room.
What's up, man? Go.
That's a great beat, nicely recorded. Now let's go ahead and sample Harvey Scales' Dancing Room Only. So first thing we're gonna do is try to find which channel this is in. So let's start with the left channel. Let's try the right channel. The left channel is much stronger, so we're just gonna go with that. I'm going to EQ this so that this beat sounds more like this. So what I've done is I've boosted the lows, which is what all of these hip-hop producers did at the time. And then we're also going to bring out a little bit of the highs and a bit of the mids. So I'm going to take off the EQ. Now listen to that bass drum. And that was so important to the sound at the time. Without that, these songs would have sounded very flat when you're playing it back. You know, you can't dance to that. So let's go ahead and sample this loop here. Now, amazingly, there really isn't anything done here. Like, I might have to stretch this a little bit. We're gonna see. We're just gonna match up the transients, as we always do. But as I look through here with the Beastie Boys, everything is like spot on. It's actually pretty amazing. So let's listen to our 2 samples so far. Okay, so we have the backbone of Shake Your Rump. Now the next sample to come in is this guitar. Now that guitar was sampled from Ronnie Law's and his track Tell Me Something Good from the 1975 album Pressure Sensitive. You could probably hear this, but it is clearly much slower than Shake Your Rump. So we're going to have to speed up this clip. Now, another thing I'm hearing in Shake Your Rump is it's panning from left to right a little bit as that guitar plays. And so we're going to do a similar effect here with what's called an auto pan. We're going to slow that down a little bit. Okay, so we have this so far. So the next sample to come in is the disco call. Now, it has been credited to the band Foxy and their track Get Off from 1978. And to make it even more possible that that's the case, I even found an acapella version of Get Off. And so I was pretty convinced that people were right and this was the sample that was taken. But as I went to sample this, as has happened many times in the past, it just didn't sound right. And in this case, it is not. This might be a little bit contentious, but I can say almost certainly that Foxy Get Off was not sampled for Shake Your Rump. It was probably used as a reference for whoever did record the disco call. But as you can hear, that disco call, it's one voice. And Foxy's Get Off is clearly many people in a recording booth making those terrible noises. To prove this point further, let's take a listen to Foxy's Get Off with the disco call and the rest of the deconstruction we have so far. So Foxy's Get Off was almost certainly not sampled in Shake Your Rump. Sorry about that. So let's move on to the next sample, which is fantastic in my opinion. Those excellent drums come from Louis Bellson, Shelly Manne, Willie Bobo, and Paul Humphrey's Super Mellow, The Drum Sessions, 1975. Now, these sessions have been a source for a few different breaks out there, and there's good reason, because there's multiple percussionists, and the way that they mixed it is it's very left and right channel. but let's just take the left. You can't even hear that other percussion. So they're nice and isolated and perfectly set up to be sampled. So we're gonna break this into a couple different samples, and we're gonna start with the left channel here. So we're gonna need to slow this down a little bit to make it fit. And then the next sample comes in, and that's gonna be on the right channel. So again, like before, we're going to have to EQ these, and as so often is the case, we're going to have to bump up the lows and a little bit of the highs. The other interesting thing that they used here, this left channel hip-hop beat here, fits over top of the other percussion. So the next sample we're going to talk about here is that fantastic breakdown. And that comes from Funky 4+1 and their track That's the Joint from their 1980 album Sugarhill.
If you're ready for this,
Say you're ready for this.
if you're ready for this,
Say you're ready for this.
are you ready for this? We're ready for this. Are you ready for this? We're ready for this. What we just can't miss.
We just can't miss.
What we just can't miss.
With a beat like this.
It's the joint. We're gonna prove to the world that we're for real. We're gonna prove to everybody we know the real deal. We got golden voices and hearts to steal. Because the 5 MCs, we got to be real. We wanna hear the party people yell Sugarhill. So what?
That drum fill and the bass slide and the vocals are just so perfect in this sample.
It's the joint.
So let's go ahead and sample this quickly.
You heard the style, I think you missed the point. It's the joint. It's the joint. It's the joint. It's the joint.
They did not do too much with this sample other than that. There really is no pitch shifting. It just is what it is.
It's the joint. It's the joint.
So let's move on to the very famous chorus and the bass sample. So that bass in the chorus comes from Royce and their track 6 O'Clock DJ. Now this is from the soundtrack to the movie Car Wash, which was from 1976. So let's see if we can sample this bass here. So first of all, I think this was taken from a Moog synthesizer. So a couple things. We're gonna have to bring this down a little bit. You can hear you can kind of hear the phase go like a little bit low and then high. And so we want to hit that phase. Now, one of the interesting things they did here in the chorus is they actually took some of these samples and pitch shifted them way down. So in this case, these first couple hits are down by around an octave. Now, we need an EQ on this because there's so much low end missing, and I throw a compressor on it as well because you don't want the volumes moving around on your bass very much. So let's see what we got here. Now, there's an element missing in this chorus that you might hear. And it's a percussive element. And that percussive element actually comes again from Louis Bellson, Shelly, Manne, and their track Super Mellow. And it's this rather innocuous drum loop here. which is taken right after the first two samples that are taken at the beginning of this track. Now, if we combine those rhythms together, this is what it sounds like. Now, I'll take out the Louis Bellson loop. It just makes a world of difference, you know? Now, let's throw in the bass again. That's one of the reasons that this chorus kind of kicks as hard as it does, is because of that drum layering there. Now there's a few more samples to get into here, so let's talk about them.
With your bad breath, onion ring. Well, I'm like Ian, I'm back from the dead. Chilling at the beach, down at Club Med. Make another record because the people, they want more of this. Suckers.
Now that fantastic bass line is taken once again from Royce and the Car Wash soundtrack, and this track is called the Yoyo. So I just sampled that in here, and we're going to take a quick listen. Now they bumped it up 2 semitones to fit the BPM of Shake Your Rump. Now let's move on to the next sample. So that sample comes from Afrika, Bambaataa, and James Brown and their track Unity Part 2, Because It's Coming from 1984. And so as you can hear, there are drums playing over top of this sample. So it just so happens that part 6 from the same album is sort of an acapella compilation track. And in that track, you find the isolated Shake Your Rump sample that was used by the Dust Brothers.
Shake your rump.
So there's only a few more samples here, but let's get to it.
I'm like Sam the Butcher, bringing Alice to me. Like Fred Flintstone, driving around with bald feet.
So there's a guitar loop that's happening there, as well as an interesting sound at the end of the bar. So that first little loop there is once again from Royce and the Car Wash soundtrack, and this track was called Born to Love You. Now, there's also an interesting sound effect that happens at the end of each of those bars. And that sound effect was taken from Afrika Bambaataa and his track, The Jazzy Five, from the 1981 album, Jazzy Sensation. And so if we combine those two together, we get this.
Like Fred Flintstone, driving around with bald feet. Should I have another sip?
So the last sample we're going to talk about comes right at the end of this little break.
With those dookies all around the neck.
And that was sampled from Sugarhill Gang and their track Eighth Wonder from 1981.
Clap your hands, everybody, and everybody just clap your hands.
And so that's easy enough to sample in.
Got the molar tag.
So let's go ahead and take a listen to the instrumental version of Shake Your Rump. And before we do, I just want to say, if you like this kind of thing, give a thumbs up, leave a comment, subscribe if you really like this kind of content. And on that note, I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next video.